He sold his only keke, trekked under the sun, and starved himself just to save his son. But in the end, the boy died chasing a surgery, and the father died from heartbreak. This is the story of Ebuka. Ebuka grew up in Enugu, the first son of a hard-working keke rider, Mr. Okafor. From the outside, he looked like a normal young man, tall, slim, and intelligent. But inside, he carried a burning insecurity. Among his university hostel mates, jokes about manhood size were common, and Ebuka always felt like the hidden target. Even though no one ever directly mocked him, he believed every laugh, every whispered conversation was about him. That secret fear ate him alive. His father, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to pay his fees, proudly telling neighbors his son would become the pride of the family. But Ebuka never believed he was enough. He thought the only way to earn respect, love, and admiration was to fix what nature gave him. The whispers of the internet became his teacher. At first, he tried creams, online pills, and strange concoctions advertised on late-night websites. Nothing worked. Instead, he wasted money and faced embarrassing side effects. One night, scrolling through Instagram, he stumbled upon a sleek advertisement for a clinic in Lagos promising fast, risk-free penis enlargement. The page showed smiling men, before and after photos, and captions like, "Regain your confidence today." His heart raced. This was what he had been searching for. He called the number, and a man with a foreign accent assured him, "Brother, 3 hours, no problem, you'll be a new man." Ebuka knew it was expensive, but the thought of walking into a room and finally being respected drowned every caution. He decided he would go. The next morning, he approached his father with a lie. "Papa, I have a job interview in Lagos. They want me to come with my documents. I just need transport money." Mr. Okafor, though tired from endless rides, lit up with joy. He had prayed for this kind of opportunity for his son. Without hesitation, he sold his last spare tire to raise enough money for Ebuka's trip. "My son, go and succeed," he said, pressing the notes into Ebuka's hand. "Remember, you carry my name with pride." Ebuka hugged him, but guilt burned inside his chest. He couldn't tell the truth, yet he also couldn't stop himself. The idea of finally transforming his body drowned out every fatherly word. When Ebuka arrived in Lagos, the clinic wasn't as glamorous as the adverts had shown. It sat at the back of a plaza with tinted glass doors and no signboard. Inside, however, everything looked professional: white coats, clean chairs, machines humming softly. The doctor assured him, "Brother, in a few hours, you will be unstoppable." Papers were shoved into his hand, but nobody explained them properly. Nervously, Ebuka signed. They gave him an injection, and soon he drifted into sleep. Hours later, he awoke groggy, but when he looked down, he couldn't believe it. For the first time in his life, he felt powerful. He paid part of the money and promised to return with the balance. Walking out of that building, he thought, "I am finally reborn." Back in Enugu, Ebuka returned with a swagger. His friends immediately noticed his newfound confidence, even though they couldn't pinpoint why. Suddenly, he was louder, more charismatic, more daring. Girls who had once ignored him now laughed at his jokes. One in particular, Kioma, a well-known campus beauty, began spending time with him. For the first time, Ebuka felt he belonged. He posted gym selfies online, wore tighter trousers, and even began borrowing clothes to look more stylish. To outsiders, his life was changing for the better. But beneath the smile, he felt sharp pain in his lower body. Pain he ignored. "It's just healing," he told himself, swallowing painkillers and acting like nothing was wrong. He believed his new life had only just begun. But the clinic never forgot him. Calls started coming, "Brother, you have not completed your payment. If you don't settle us, we will release your file." Panic gripped him. If anyone found out, especially his father, he would be ruined. He begged for time, but they refused. At last, he turned again to his father. "Papa, I need money. I want to start a small business, but I need capital." Mr. Okafor hesitated. He had nothing left but his keke. Yet he couldn't bear to see his son struggling. So he sold the keke he had built his life on and handed the money over. From that day, he began trekking long distances to survive, doing menial jobs for a fraction of what he once earned.
Life grew darker for Mr. Okafor. Once respected in the neighborhood as a proud father who sent his son to university, he was now seen limping home in torn slippers, drenched from rain, exhausted. Neighbors whispered, "How can a man his age be suffering like this?" But he bore it quietly, believing it was all for his son's future. Ebuka, meanwhile, continued his campus life, treating Chioma to dinners and showing off. He never told anyone the truth, that his father's sacrifice was fueling his deception. Each night when he lay down, he felt stabbing pain in his lower body, but he clenched his teeth and endured. To admit weakness would mean admitting everything was a lie, and he wasn't ready for that. One night, disaster struck. Ebuka woke up screaming, his bedsheet soaked in blood. His roommate rushed him to the hospital, where doctors shook their heads gravely. The surgery he had undergone was botched, leaving internal damage. They explained he needed corrective treatment abroad, costing millions. Ebuka froze. He didn't have a kobo left. His father arrived at the hospital, confused and worried. "My son, what happened?" he asked, clutching his chest. For the first time, Ebuka broke down in tears. He told his father everything, the lies, the surgery, the deaths. Mr. Okafor staggered backward, the betrayal hitting harder than a hammer. He had given everything, destroyed his own life, for a son who had gambled it all away. Chioma disappeared the moment she heard the truth. Friends who had once praised him stopped answering his calls. The clinic workers cut him off entirely, labeling him a failed client. Alone in the hospital bed, Ebuka watched his father sleeping uncomfortably on a bench, his thin frame coiled like a child's. The guilt gnawed at him. For the first time, he realized how much his father had truly lost. His keke, his health, his dignity. Ebuka wanted to say, "I'm sorry," but shame sealed his lips. He stared at the ceiling, wondering if his short season of confidence had been worth this price. Deep down, he already knew the answer. It hadn't. But knowing the truth could not stop what was coming. Days turned into weeks, and Ebuka's body grew weaker. The swelling worsened, the infection spread, and even the simplest tasks became unbearable. His father tried to raise money through relatives, but nobody had enough to help. Some scolded him. "Why did you let your son waste money on such foolishness?" Mr. Okafor couldn't defend himself. He only bowed his head in silence. The shame was too heavy. At night, Ebuka cried quietly, realizing he had traded his life for an illusion. His father prayed beside him, asking God for one more chance, but medicine had no mercy, and neither did the choices Ebuka had made. Each day, his breath grew shorter, his skin paler, and his eyes emptier. The hospital ward smelt of disinfectant and despair. One night, as the rain hammered the windows, Ebuka's body finally gave up. He clutched his father's hand weakly and whispered, "Papa, forgive me. I was already enough." Tears streamed down Mr. Okafor's face as he begged, "Stay with me, my son. Please, stay." But Ebuka's eyes closed slowly. his chest rising one last time before falling still. The silence that followed was unbearable. Mr. Okafor screamed until his voice cracked, shaking his son's lifeless body. Nurses rushed in, but it was too late. The young man who had once dreamed of respect and admiration was gone, leaving only a grieving father holding the heavy weight of regret in his arms. After Ebuka's death, Mr. Okafor's world shattered completely. He carried the coffin through the village with trembling arms, neighbors whispering, "That boy wasted his life." At the burial, he could not speak. His voice had been stolen by sorrow. Returning home, he found his one-room house emptier than ever. The silence of death haunted every corner. He no longer had a son, no keke, no savings, no dignity. Only grief remained. Each day, he wandered aimlessly, staring at Ebuka's old photographs, muttering, if only he had believed he was enough. Slowly, his health began to fail. The strength that once carried passengers across town now barely carried him across his own yard.
Grief does not just break the heart, it breaks the body. Mr. Okafor stopped eating properly, surviving only on garri soaked in tears. He no longer went out to look for work. Neighbors tried to encourage him, but their pity only deepened his shame. Each time he heard laughter outside, it reminded him of Ebuka's bright, wasted youth. His nights were sleepless, filled with nightmares of his sons screaming in pain. Eventually, his chest began to ache and his legs trembled under his own weight. He refused to see a doctor. He had nothing left to pay with. Quietly, he began to wait for death, convinced that his purpose had been buried with his son. One morning, neighbors found him collapsed outside his door, clutching Ebuka's photograph to his chest. They rushed him to the local hospital, but the doctors only shook their heads. Years of hard labor, coupled with the crushing grief of losing his only son, had taken their toll. He lay silently on the bed, his breath shallow. A nurse heard him whisper, "I gave everything, and I lost him. What else is left?" Hours later, his eyes rolled back and his body went still. Mr. Okafor was gone, reunited in death with the son who had unknowingly destroyed them both. At their small compound, both father and son now rested in graves side by side. Villagers shook their heads whenever they passed. Some blamed Ebuka's foolishness, others blamed the clinic, and some blamed fate itself. But one truth stood tall above every grave marker. Insecurity had destroyed two lives, not one. The father who sacrificed everything and the son who could not see his own worth were both gone, leaving behind only sorrow and warning. Their stories spread quietly among the youth in whispers. Don't chase shadows. Don't let shame kill you. Don't gamble with your body just to feel respected. But the lesson came too late for Ebuka and his father, whose names became a tragic proverb in their village.